For those of you at home who do not have a printer, you're probably wondering how you're going to complete the mystery grid assignment. And I'm here to tell you how. It's very simple. All you have to do is take a piece of your sketchbook paper and apply a grid to it, and you'll be set to work on this assignment. If you look at the packet online, you will notice that each grid is made up of a series of squares. So all we have to do is create squares on our paper for a grid. Now I have a sheet of sketchbook paper that is 9 by 12. If you're using 8.5 by 11 paper, you're going to have a little 1/2 inch on your 8.5 inch side, but that's okay. You won't even need to trim that up. All I'm going to do is start at the bottom of my paper with the 0 of my ruler lined up to the left edge, and I'm just going to mark every inch until I run out of space. I'm going to then move my ruler to the top of the paper. So whenever we graph, it is always important that you move the ruler from top to bottom and don't turn your paper, just in case there was a mix-up when it was being manufactured and there was maybe a slight movement in the paper as it was cut. This way, if there is any mismatching of measurements on the right side, let's say at the bottom it measured exactly 12 inches, but maybe at the top it measured 11 and 15/16, then that one little row will be slightly off. All your other rows will be nice, perfect, straight lines and little squares. So that's why we always move the ruler from top to bottom when we make our marks for our straight lines. So once again, at the top here, I have my 0 lined up to the left edge, and I am going to again mark every inch. Now that I have marks at the top and at the bottom of my paper, I'm going to take my ruler and line up each mark top to bottom, and I'm going to draw a line from the edge of the paper to the edge of the paper. So I'm not stopping at the marks. I'm making sure I'm encompassing the entire height of that paper with that pencil line. And I'm going to do that with every mark I've made. So now that I have my graph lines in this direction, I'm going to now turn my paper a quarter of a turn. So now my graph lines that I have drawn are horizontal. I'm going to repeat the process to complete my grid. I'm going to line up the 0 of my ruler to the bottom left edge of my paper, and I'm going to once again mark every inch. I'm then going to move my ruler to the top of my paper, and once again lining up the 0 to the left top edge, I'm going to again make a mark at every inch. And once again, and my paper's a little bit tall for you to see this, but I'm going to take my bottom mark and my top mark, line it up with my ruler. And once again, from the edge of my paper to the edge of my paper, I'm going to draw a line. And I'm going to do that for every mark I have drawn at the top and the bottom. And there I have my 1-inch grid. So now I can now work within that mystery packet. You have a choice still as to which drawing you choose, but now you'll just have to make sure that you check that you have enough boxes. So I have a 9 by 12 piece of paper, so I can complete almost any of these. So when I look here, I need 7 boxes at the top, I need 8 boxes along the side, and I definitely have that on this piece of paper. If I look at one that's a little bit larger, here I need 9 boxes along the top, and I need 12 boxes down. So that will fill up my entire 9 by 12 piece of paper. Once I find one of these mystery grid drawings that I want, and again, you don't need to print out the packet, you're going to look on the paper, and what you're going to do, sorry, not on the paper, on the screen, and what you're going to do is you're going to look at the drawings and then look at their empty graphs. So starting with the first one, if we look at the front of the packet, and yours will of course be online, not printed out like mine, this page 1 is just some tips for drawing, are just some tips for drawing to a graph. When I look at the back, this would be page 2 in the PDF file. This drawing goes with this graph. So the graphs to the drawing are always going to be on the odd number pages. So if I looked at this one and decided this is one I'm interested in drawing, I'm then going to look at the graph to make sure I have enough boxes on my handmade piece of paper to do it. So when I look here, I need 11 boxes across and 8 boxes down. So when I come here, I have 12 boxes across, and I definitely have the 8 boxes down. So this is one I could draw. If I have 8.5 by 11 paper, I will still be able to complete this drawing because again, I need 11 boxes across, which would be my full 11 inches, and I need 8 boxes down. So that means you'll just make sure you're choosing your full 8 and not that little ½ inch section you would have left over. So if I go on to page 4, and if this was the drawing that interests me, then I'd look to page 5 at its graph, and again look to see how many boxes I need, and again check my drawing paper that I just put the grid on to see if I have those boxes. Now once you do choose one and you have made sure that you have enough boxes to draw it, you need to watch orientation. So in case in point, looking here at the drawing on page 4 and the graph on page 5, notice that my alphabet is at the top and that I have these 9 boxes at the top. So I'd have to make sure I turn my paper to make sure I have the 9 boxes with my 12 boxes down the row. So again, 12 boxes down. So if I were to do this one, what I would suggest, since you don't have an outside border like they do to label it, is that you just very carefully place in the corner here, this is A1. I'd put the 1 down below. And then just small, put your alphabet along the top. And your numbers continuing down the side. I forgot my number 6. Oh my goodness. And then anything that would be in A1 would get drawn in this very corner box. Anything in B1 would be drawn in this box. Anything in A2 would be drawn in this box. So you just wouldn't have the advantage of the outer border. You would have to make sure that you remember that every single box would be accounted for in the graph drawing. Compare that to a graph that, when we look at it, is turned on its side into a landscape view where A through I is represented at the top, 1 through 7 down along the side. I would have to make sure that I turn my paper in the same orientation. And then the same thing we just talked about. I would once again start with the first one. It would be A1, and then B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. And then of course 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. Okay, so that is how, if you do not have a printer, you will complete this assignment for class. You will have to, with a piece of scrapbook, sorry, not scrapbook, with a piece of sketchbook paper, draw your own 1-inch graph, and then choose which drawing you want on the even page, and looking at the odd page, check the graph to make sure you have enough boxes to complete that drawing, and then label your paper and make sure it's in the correct orientation according to that graph on the odd page. So now that you have your grid drawn on your paper, you're ready to go to the next video in which I discuss working with and drawing to a grid.